For years, the message from the car care nut was simple and unwavering. Stick to the factory spec. Toyota engineers tested 0W-20 in those engines for thousands of hours, and if the owner's manual says 0W-20, then 0W-20 it is. End of conversation. He built an entire reputation on defending that position against every armchair mechanic who insisted thicker was better. But in one of his more recent videos, something shifted. The phrasing got more careful. The blanket defense started picking up footnotes, and then came the line that lit up the comment section. On high mileage engines, and especially turbocharged ones, the case for 0W-30 grows stronger every year. That's not a betrayal of his old position. That's a man following the data where it actually leads. And the data has been leading somewhere uncomfortable for a while now. So let's talk about what actually changed in the engine itself between mile 0 and mile 150,000, because once you understand the physics, the so-called controversy collapses into common sense. Here's the problem with treating oil viscosity as a religious debate. Both sides keep arguing from positions instead of from measurements. The factory spec camp says Toyota wouldn't recommend something that hurts the engine. The thicker is better camp says any mechanic with gray hair will tell you 0W-30 lasts longer. Both can be partly right at the same time, because the engine you bought at 0 miles is not the same engine you're driving at 150,000. The clearances have widened. The seals have hardened. The ringlands carry varnish. The cam journals show microscoring you'll never see with a flashlight. And the oil that protected a tight, clean engine in year 1 is now being asked to protect a looser, dirtier engine in year 10. That's the conversation nobody was having clearly, until the data forced it open. Now, why does it matter what the car care nut says specifically? Because in the automotive YouTube world, AMD, that's his channel, built credibility by being almost stubbornly pro-manufacturer. He's a Toyota master diagnostic technician. He's not a guy hawking thicker oil to sell sponsorships. When he held the line on 0W-20, he held it hard, because his entire framework was, the engineers know more than you do. So when that same person starts publicly acknowledging that, the picture changes after 100,000 miles, or with a turbo, or with a vehicle that's burning oil between changes, that carries weight. It's not a guy flip-flopping. It's a guy updating his position as the long-term field data finally catches up to what the lab data has been hinting at for a decade. And the lab data is where this whole thing actually gets interesting. So let's get into it. The number that matters most in this fight isn't the one printed on your oil cap. It's called HTHS, which stands for High Temperature, High Shear Viscosity. Most people have never heard of it. Most parts store clerks couldn't define it. But it's the single most relevant measurement of how oil behaves inside a hot running engine where the parts are moving at thousands of feet per minute. The SAE viscosity grade you see on the bottle, 0W-20, 5W-30, that's a broad category. HTHS is the actual shear resistance number, measured in centipoise, and it tells you how thick the oil really stays inside a loaded bearing at 296 degrees Fahrenheit. For a typical 0W-20, HTHS comes in around 2.6 centipoise. That's the minimum the SAE specification allows for that grade. For a typical 5W-30, you're looking at 3.0 to 3.1 centipoise. That doesn't sound like a huge difference on paper. 2.6 versus 3.1, who cares? But here's where the analogy matters, because this is where most explanations fall apart. Picture a hot pan on a stove. Now picture spraying it with a thin cooking spray. That mist coats the surface, sure, but the second you slide a heavy piece of food across it under real pressure, the spray smears, it parts, and you get direct metal contact between the pan and whatever you're cooking. Now picture the same pan with a generous slab of butter. Under the same pressure, that butter stays as a film. It deforms, it shifts, but it doesn't give up the surface. The food glides on a cushion. That's HTHS in plain English. The cooking spray is a 0W-20 at full operating temperature inside a loaded crank journal. The butter is a 5W-30 in the same place. Both protect a brand new tight engine just fine, because the clearances are so small that even the thinnest film bridges the gap. But widen those clearances, add some carbon, add some bypass past the rings, and suddenly the cooking spray starts running out of cushion at exactly the worst possible moment. Here's the part that actually moves the needle. A factory-fresh Toyota or Honda engine has bearing clearances in the range of 0.001 to 0.002 of an inch on the main and rod journals. Tight. Engineered around the thin oil. At 150,000 miles, those clearances have measurably widened. Not catastrophically. We're talking maybe an additional half-thousandth on the rods, sometimes more. But oil film thickness is a function of clearance, viscosity, speed, and load. And once the clearance opens up, you need either more speed, more viscosity, or both to maintain the same hydrodynamic film. You can't make the engine spin faster at idle. So the only lever you have left is viscosity. And this is where the high mileage case for moving up a grade stops being old mechanic folklore and starts being basic tribology. But wait, because the picture gets more complicated when you add turbocharging. A turbo bearing runs at over 100,000 RPM, and it sees oil temperatures well above what the bulk sump sees. That HTHS number, the actual shear resistance under heat and load, becomes the difference between a turbo that lasts 200,000 miles and one that develops shaft play at 90,000. Even the European version of the same Toyota engine sometimes specs a 30-weight oil for that exact reason. Same block, same pistons, different oil recommendation because the test cycle in Europe doesn't reward the manufacturer for chasing every last tenth of a mile per gallon. Now let's bring in the wear data, because this is where the rubber hits the road, or rather, where the wear metals hit the lab report. Blackstone Labs has been collecting used oil analysis data for decades, hundreds of thousands of samples from real owners running real engines in real conditions. And while Blackstone is careful in their language, the aggregated trends tell a story that's hard to wave off. On naturally aspirated Toyota and Honda engines under 100,000 miles, 0W-20 samples come back with iron wear numbers, copper wear numbers, lead wear numbers, all sitting comfortably inside what the labs call the universal average. The oil is doing its job. The factory engineers were right for that condition, but once you pull samples from the same engine families above 120,000 miles, especially on vehicles that have lived a mixed duty cycle, short trips, hot summers, towing, the trend lines start to bend. Iron creeps up, aluminum creeps up. And when you cross-reference those samples against owners who move their high-mileage engines to a 5W30 or even a 0W30, the wear metal numbers in many cases trend back down toward the universal average. Not always. Not for every engine, but often enough that the pattern is visible across thousands of reports. That's not me saying it. That's what the aggregate data suggests. And labs like Blackstone have been increasingly willing to write it into their report comments. Phrases like, viscosity may be on the lighter side for this engine's current condition, or consider stepping up to a 30 weight as miles accumulate. Those notes weren't appearing a decade ago. They are now. The evidence increasingly suggests that what's optimal at 30,000 miles is not necessarily optimal at 150. Now, here's where I have to slow down, because the factory spec defenders have a real argument and it deserves a fair hearing. This isn't a case of Toyota lying or Honda being negligent. Here's their position, and it's a strong one. The 0W-20 recommendation came out of a very specific set of priorities. Number one, CAFE compliance. The corporate average fuel economy standards in the United States reward every fractional improvement in fleet mileage, and thinner oil reduces pumping losses, reduces parasitic drag, and improves cold start efficiency before the engine reaches full operating temperature. We're talking maybe 1 to 2% on the EPA cycle. That sounds tiny, but across millions of vehicles, that's the difference between meeting the standard and paying fines that run into hundreds of millions of dollars. Number two, cold start protection. A 0W-20 flows almost instantly at 20 below zero. A 5W30 takes longer to reach the upper end of the engine. For the first 60 seconds after a cold start in winter, the thinner oil is genuinely protecting the engine better than a 30 weight could. And manufacturers know that the majority of measurable wear on a modern engine happens in those first cold start moments, not at cruise. So in cold climates, on a tight new engine, the math actually favors the thinner grade. Number three, the engines really were designed around it. The piston squirters, the variable valve timing solenoids, the oil pump volume, all of it was sized assuming a 20 weight. Going thicker in a brand new engine could theoretically slow the VVT response or starve the squirters of flow. In practice, the effect is small, and most engines have plenty of margin, but the manufacturer can't recommend something that increases warranty risk even slightly. So the factory case isn't dumb, it's just optimized for a specific window of the engine's life. Roughly, the first 100,000 miles, when the engine is still tight, the seals are still soft, the carbon hasn't built up, and the warranty is still in play. Outside that window, the optimization changes and the manual hasn't caught up to that reality, because the manual was written for the showroom, not the long haul. Which brings us to the actual practical guidance. And I'm going to give this to you in the conditional way it deserves, because there is no one-size answer. If you're under 100,000 miles, your engine is naturally aspirated, you're still under powertrain warranty, and you're running an interval at or below the manufacturer's recommendation, then stay on 0W-20. The data supports it, the warranty depends on it, and you're not losing anything by following the spec while the engine is in its optimal window. If you're past 100,000 miles, naturally aspirated, no warranty concerns, and you live somewhere with cold winters, then a 0W30 through the winter months. And a 5W30 through the summer months is a defensible move. The cold start flow stays excellent, the HTHS climbs to where the widened clearances need it, and the wear metal trend lines generally improve over the next 2 to 3 oil samples. If you're driving a turbocharged engine of any mileage, and especially anything from the last decade with direct injection plus turbo, then the case for 0W-20 strengthens significantly even before the odometer rolls past 100,000. The European spec sheets for those same engines often tell you the answer the American manual won't. Look at what the manufacturer recommends in countries that don't have CAFE. If your engine is starting to burn oil between changes, even just half a quart, that's the engine telling you something. Move up a grade. The thicker film slows the consumption, often noticeably, and the wear protection benefits compound. This isn't about masking a problem. It's about giving an older engine the film strength its current condition actually needs. And if you're in a hot climate, towing heavy loads, doing extended highway pulls in summer, then HTHS becomes non-negotiable. The cooking spray on a hot pan analogy isn't dramatic, it's literal. You want butter in that bearing, not mist. Pull your dipstick this weekend. Smell the oil, look at the color, check the level. If it's gone down noticeably since your last change, that's data. If it smells like fuel, that's data. If you're seeing slow accumulation of varnish on the underside of the cap, that's data too. Then go pull up your last oil change receipt, note the mileage, and ask yourself honestly whether the grade you're running is matched to the engine you have now, not the engine you had when it was new. Now I want to hear from you because this one always lights up the comments. Drop the grade you're running, the mileage on your engine, and what you've actually noticed since you've been on that oil. Wear, consumption, noise, anything. I read these. The collective experience in a comment section like this one is genuinely more useful than any single oil analysis because we're seeing patterns across thousands of engines instead of just one. And if this changed how you think about the oil in your own driveway, send it to the friend who's been arguing about this with you for years. Subscribe, so the follow-up, where we dig into specific engine families and what the actual sample data says for each one, doesn't slip past you.